Okay, I'm going to start the painting using as a base the thumbnail I chose before. Right now I'm going to colorize it. I'm not going to colorize it very carefully since I'm going to paint all over it eventually. So right now the only thing I want to do is to put some colors so I don't have to start the painting from black and white. Uh, to colorize the image I use many different kinds of layers. Right now I'm using a color mode layer. I use the same brush for almost everything. It's the most basic hard round Photoshop brush. I simply change the opacity whenever I need it. Right now I'm using just 80% opacity. It's a quite basic brush, but I like it. It works quite well for me. To obtain more intensity on certain colors and to get some extra luminosity, I use a soft light mode layer. It's a quite useful kind of layer. I use it a lot to colorize many things, to create many kind of illumination effects, but right now I just want to paint the fire and the parts of the character illuminated by the fire, so I'm using a combination of warm colors like warm yellow, orange, red. Overlay is quite useful layer mode. Right now I'm using it to give more luminosity to certain areas which are a bit too dark on the thumbnail, and also to give more saturation to the colors in the fire areas. As you can see at this point, everything is still quite rough. Color adjustment layers are good for adjusting and unifying the tones, because sometimes when you are working fast and roughly, the image don't have all the chromatic harmony that it should have. Now I am starting to actually paint. The thumbnail is very rough and imprecise. Anatomy, proportion, composition, everything is wrong. I just wanted to give me an idea of how the image is going to look like, so I use it as a base to start, but it's not a correct base. I find easier to see the image on the paper than in my head, so for me, even a very imprecise base is better than starting from a blank page. It's now when I start to paint over the thumbnail to build the image properly. As you can see, I use the same brush all the time. I also use the color picker a lot. I mix the colors thanks to the low opacity of the brush, so if I want a mix between the color I have on my brush and the color I have on the background, I simply paint with low opacity over the background, and then I use the color picker to select the resulting color and so on. I paint with my left hand constantly on the color pick shortcut of my tablet. Okay, the image is still very rough, but it's starting to look better. Soon it will be a good time to start adding more information and detail to the character. Well, as you can see here, I have advanced a bit on the image. I have defined parts of the anatomy, the outfit, and now I am at that point where everything starts to be correct, but without any definition. So now I'm going to define more the figure, trying to get close to what I want to see on the final piece. I try to put not too many details until I have a solid base. I don't want to discover that I have proportion problems or anatomy problems on the painting when everything is already polished and full of detail. Now I'm working on the face. I'm trying to define the expression and the facial features. This is a bit intuitive. I'm painting light and shadows where I think I should. Those are the important things: light, shadows, proportions, shapes. The image is very unfinished yet, but it's in this part of the painting where the hard work is done, where the important things are settled. I want to paint the upper part of the face darker, because due to the contrast with the fire, the face should be seen as a dark element. If the fire were illuminating the face should have bright tones, but the fire is emanating from it, so it's like a match. If you light a match and you see inside the flame, the match itself is dark. This might not be exactly as I'm depicting it, but I don't want to only achieve a more realistic effect. I also want to force that contrast to look a bit like a mask. Superheroes, not all of them, but many of them wear a mask, so it's like wearing a mask without wearing it. Her own flames hide her face. I thought that it could be a cool idea, so I'm trying to paint the face that way. I do a lot of zoom-ins and zoom-outs because it's important to see the whole thing. When you're painting something like a face or a small detail, there's the risk of getting lost and ending up missing the harmony on the whole image, having parts which look good by themselves but doesn't look good together. So zooming in and out from time to time is a good thing. Flipping the image is also important. When you're not too sure of what you're doing, or you have been painting the same thing for a while and you want to see if what you have been doing really works, it's a good idea to flip the image, because when you're looking at the same thing for a long time, the eyes get used to it and you don't see the possible mistakes so easily. So flipping it helps you to see the image from a different angle and makes spotting any mistake easier. Okay, I think that the face is going on the right direction, so it's time to paint the flames. They need to look as fire, but also they need to look as hair, so I need to paint some kind of flames which could suggest the shape of a person's hair. At the same time, I'm using them in a compositive way. I could paint them upwards or backwards or in any direction, but I'm painting them to the right because inside of the image it's good to have them there. They fill that blank space of the composition and makes the whole image look better. Every element should be used to improve the whole composition. Well, after working on the image some more, I arrived to the point where I have to use Sai. Basically, I'm going to polish and define the image. Now, as you can see, I'm using the watercolor tool. It has a different name, but it's based on the watercolor tool, which doesn't actually paint. The blending is set to 100%, so it doesn't add any color, it just blends the colors already on the canvas. This might look like a lot of work, but in fact this is quite easy. The hard part is already done. I did all the important things using Photoshop. This is a method I often use. I start the image without caring too much about the final result, just focusing on getting the right light, the right proportions, right colors, right anatomy, right composition, and when I have something correct, I use Sai to polish it, to blend the brush strokes, trying to get a clean finished piece without having to care about basic things such as proportion, light and so on. I find easier to solve problems one by one rather than simultaneously. There are many ways to work. This might not be the best for every single situation, but it works for me. So that's why I use Sai a lot. It's a program which I find quite comfortable to work the way I work. There are some times where I need to use a tool which actually paints rather than a blending brush. Right now I'm using the brush. As you can see, this one doesn't have any blending, so it only paints. It's similar to any Photoshop brush, but it creates some fancy brush strokes that I like. It's useful to define things that I don't want to look soft, since using a watercolor blending brush might make things look a bit that way. Another useful thing is that Sai has a stabilizer feature, which you can see at the upper right part of the screen. Sadly for me, I have shaky hands, so when it comes to paint particularly clean and perfect silhouettes, the stabilizer makes the task way easier. I'm working on just one layer because the watercolor tool only affects one layer. So before going to Sai, I need to merge down all the layers in Photoshop. Not only because of that, but also because Sai doesn't get along too well with some of Photoshop layers like color adjustment layers or soft light layers. So I work in one single layer and I kept a modified copy of it so I can check how it was before I started to paint with Sai and know if I'm making it better or worse. Okay, let's make a little jump forward in time and let's see how I work on a different area of the image. Right now I'm polishing the outfit. I'm using the brush because I don't want just to polish it, but also to correct the silhouette a bit. Now I'm using the watercolor brush again to blend the brush strokes on the face. I need to be careful because I don't want to waste all the work I put into depicting the wrinkles of the nose, the mouth, the expression and so on. I have to limit the blending to the cheeks and other parts without too much expressive information. Polishing the legs is quite easy, all the brush strokes are on the right spot, so I just need to blend them without losing definition. As I said before, the tough part is already done. Now it just needs a little more time, but the thinking part is already finished. After working a bit with Sai, the image is almost complete. What I'm going to do right now is to add some reflections on the outfit, a bit like plastic or latex or something like that. The first thing I do is painting the reflections as a plain silhouette, just to create the shape of the reflections. Later I will select this silhouette to paint the alto as reflections. As you can see, I still use the same brush. As you can see, this is a trial and error thing until I get something I like. Right now I am selecting all the silhouettes, and in another layer, using the gradient tool, I'm going to start painting the actual reflections. What I'm going to do right now is to paint some incandescent ashes coming from the flames. I'm going to use the maple leaf scatter, which works quite well for me, but using a different brush tip, say, I'm going to use this one, which I created myself. It looks like some kind of particle. I'm changing the roundness of the brush so all the little particles don't look the same. I'm going to change the amount of dispersion. And that's it. Now I choose a bright color and I just simply scatter the ashes. This is quite aleatory, so I have to do and undo constantly until I get something I like. This makes the process a bit slow, but at the same time that randomness looks nice for that kind of stuff. When painting things like ashes, snowflakes, stars and that kind of stuff, it's quite common to group them in a not too natural way, you know, like following some kind of logic. I guess that we do it without meaning it. It's hard to avoid, but adding a random factor like the dispersion of that brush helps a lot.
When you're doing that kind of things, you will need to spend some time watching the image and analyzing what you have done to know if it looks better than before or not, or if it could look better or not. At this point I have to take some time and think about the painting and the best way to finish it.